Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Up the Poshcast. We are talking all about the defeat to Doncaster Rovers. We said on the last episode, the last final whistle, that the new manager bounce was over. It really does feel that way now. A really frustrating defeat, even if there was maybe some positives within the performance. We also talk about Sam Hughes' injury. And just the state that it leaves us in, it looks like he's going to be out for the season, which is really, really worrying, to be honest. And we look through the squad and talk about the options that we have. And yeah, it's concerning. We also preview Swindon, who we've got in the Virtue Trophy. Who are we going to play there? Is basically the crux of the conversation. In this episode, you'll also get some insight into Mr. Harry Leonard's wedding, which myself and Ashley and Lods all attended. A lovely day was had by all. We talk about Harry's dance moves as well, so stay tuned for that. The episode has been sponsored by Smith's Hyundai. They are situated down Bretton Way and sell all sorts of new and used vehicles, so do check them out if you're looking for a new car. I was joined for this episode by Chaz, Ashley and Max. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of Up the Poshcast.
In Peterborough, match day starts long before kick-off. And whether you're heading to the pub, the ground, or just tuning into the podcast, Hyundai gets you there in comfort, style, and with room for your mates. Visit Smith's Hyundai, your local Hyundai experts and proud supporters of Up the Poshcast.
So then, Chaz, give me your thoughts on that one.
Wow. It was a really weird game of football, actually, because there was very little quality in it in either final third. We really didn't give them many chances, other than the two absolute stonewallers that they scored, which was Peter Kioso losing his man both times, that nifty little left winger for Doncaster who just nipped in behind him. He got absolutely belted by people in the away end yesterday. I can tell you that for nothing. I was walking down a staircase at one point and I genuinely heard at least two people say that he's the worst right back they've seen at Posh, which is crazy. Genuine takes I heard in that away end yesterday. They were fuming. But then second half, we were all over them. Didn't create a huge amount of clear-cut opportunities, but the subs definitely had an impact. But overall, it was just a really frustrating day. The best part of it was the fans. The away end was amazing. Literally singing all game. Even when we were 2-0 down, they were still singing. Really interesting, actually, because there's still a very clear mix in the fan base between when they were singing sort of 2-0 down, who gives with Peterborough, and then whether we were going up and staying up. At the start of the game, it was pretty much we're going up. By the end, it was we're staying up. And then I think some people got bored and stopped singing. But yeah, it was an interesting day. The performance from us probably warranted a point at least. Maybe we would have been good value for a goal-scoring win, a high-scoring win. But yeah, we defended terribly for the two goals and we got punished as you'd expect at this level.
Doncaster and Port Vale are two of the worst teams in this division on current form. And that's statistically a fact before going into the game. Doncaster are winless in 10. We've gone to Doncaster and in the first 15 minutes, we've just defended awfully. It's completely unacceptable the way that we defended those two goals and gave ourselves a real job to do. We'll talk about formation, I assume, but not starting Harry Leonard seems extremely confusing to me as we looked a completely different team when Harry Leonard came on the pitch. And that's probably one of his second mistakes that he's made. You know, we spoke the other day about his first mistake. That's probably one of his second ones was, why haven't we started Harry Leonard? And he said Luke Williams said after the game, he didn't think it was the two players on the pitch that lost the game. But I beg to say that when Harry Leonard came on the pitch, we looked a completely different team. Another thing I've got a little gripe with is the intensity. And we'll talk more about it. We'll talk about the midfield, but that midfield three looked really lethargic in the first half. And it was a night and day difference when the midfield three decided they wanted to run and play football properly. We looked, again, a completely different team when we started getting the gears turning in the second half. just a shame we haven't been able to put away chances, and that will, again, it's a clinical problem that we've seen. You know, we've gone on this great run where we've scored like 11 goals, and we've gone to Doncaster and we've struggled to score. We've only been able to get 1 goal, and I think that was disappointing. Especially, I think as Charlie said on away day ratings, that away end deserved more, and I completely agree with him. So I think it's a disappointing result. I really thought they were there for the taking, but all we can do is look on to the next game.
Yeah. Before I get too much into the game, obviously avid Poshcast listeners will know that 4 out of the 6 hosts were at Harry Leonard's wedding yesterday. He got married in Greatford and we moved across to the Barnsdale in just north of Rutland, I would say. Harry has given me a quick notice that he would like me to read out before we start. So I'm going to go through that and then I'm going to give my opinion on the game. So Harry says, thank you to everyone associated with Posh who wished me and my wife a happy wedding. It was a perfect day. Thank you in particular to a few people at the club who went out of their way to surprise us on the day with a personal message wishing us the best. You went above and beyond, and I am so grateful. I won't be on the pod for a while, but I will be watching every episode from my honeymoon, and so will my wife, who is an avid watcher too. All the best, and as always, up the Poshcast. We, of course, are not up the wedding cast, but I will say that I had a fantastic time at Harry and Tiff's wedding yesterday. It was great. What was not great was getting back from the football this afternoon and spending 90 minutes watching Peterborough United play football. Of course, there's less emotions when you know the result, but I would like to echo what Charlie and Max have both said, that the first half, we've just played ourselves out of the game, essentially. Like, we've given us a mountain to climb, and it didn't really look like Doncaster were too troubled, I would say. There was a second chance for Harry Leonard just after he'd scored the first that on another day, maybe he slots it past the goalkeeper and we're 2-2. And if it gets to 2-2, I think that we go on and watch the game. But this giving teams 2-goal head starts, it reminds me of Fergie times. And I thought that Luke Williams had switched it on and got the players to switch on, but I think that maybe he's just in the blip. And this is where I sort of sympathise with Luke Williams, is that if he'd had pre-season, if he'd had 13 games, yesterday's result wouldn't have happened. But he is still very much learning the squad, learning on the job. And we discussed, Charlie, on Friday night, didn't we, how we're really looking forward to December. But actually, December means that there's no time on the training ground. So it's going to be just sort of working through it, essentially. We've got Tuesday, Saturday, then Saturday, then it's Boxing Day, the 29th. And then we're into 2026 already, where we've got another 2 games in the first 4 days. So I hope that we start to see results, but I think it all comes down to the fact that we're still missing a few pieces of the puzzle, and yesterday showed that more than anything.
Yeah, we'll talk about individual performers later. I thought it was a game of moments, and I didn't actually think the team performance as a whole, we talked about ways to lose games. I didn't think it was a terrible team performance. I thought we looked cohesive for large parts. I want to give Doncaster a little bit of credit. I thought the outside foot pass that they played for the first goal was absolutely brilliant. And if I know Kioso's getting battered, and yes, he probably should defend it slightly better. But if a Posh player does that, if Matty Garbutt does that, we're all waxing lyrical about him and saying it's undefendable. What a ball. It's an unbelievable piece of skill. And it was a great ball in. The second goal, speaking of Garbutt, I think he's getting off very scot-free if you're only blaming Kioso, because he gives the ball away too cheaply in his own half. He's very good at that flick round the corner, but in that area, gets it wrong, gives it away. And what does Luke Williams want from his fullbacks? He wants them to go forward. We've spoken about people being too far behind the ball under Fergie, too many men back, and that would really slow our style. Kioso is trying to get forward there. And as much as he has to then sense the danger, and he doesn't sprint back into his position, I struggle to crucify him too much for not staying back, when a lot of my complaints about Peterborough's style of football are that we were too risk averse, that we kept too many back and it looked like a back 5. I can't then go, we're in possession and we should have stable possession. I can't then hammer the team for wanting to go forward and the fullbacks for wanting to go forward, because that's how I want my team to play. Now, like I say, Kioso should react to the danger a little bit better, but he didn't. And we're 2-0 down, and I don't think we played that badly. Now, the issue, and the biggest issue for me, was just the lack of quality. I thought we did some good stuff, and then it got to the final third, and it just petered out way, way too often. Doncaster would get a block in, or we wouldn't get a shot off, or it just didn't result in enough. There just wasn't enough quality on display. And that is a worry. That is a worry because we're still in the relegation zone. And while performances matter a little bit at the minute, it's results that count. And the only way we're going to get results is to show more quality in the final third. And us lacking quality in the final third is a repeated pattern over this season. And I keep saying it. The players have earned enough credit from 4 wins under Luke Williams, but that they've not earned a huge amount, because that if we keep losing again, if we lose the next 2, they're going to start getting battered again. They have to step up now. There's no excuse to the manager. If you want to play for Posh and you want to prove you're good enough for this level, as we all think they are, a lot of us are praising players in this squad now. It's up to them to start showing they are top level League One players and they can make the top 6 like we were talking about, because performances like that in the final third are never going to get us there, no matter how well the team looks structured wise. So yeah, that was the frustration for me. Just a real lack of quality from almost every attacker, I would say, bar Harry Leonard and maybe Declan Frith when he came on later on.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things, isn't it, where under a new manager you have that bounce. And I know the club have been very hesitant to call it a new manager bounce. You know, that they've been calling it everything else that they can, you know, a good manager bounce but I do think that there was quite a big element of new manager bounce. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, and that doesn't mean that, you know, credit shouldn't go to the manager. But then you've got to find a way to, when the sort of excitement of a new figure coming in, new ideas coming in dissipates, which it probably has now, probably did after the Stockport game, you have to find a way to sort of consistently perform in that new system and find unique ways to, while still playing the same way, break down teams and find the areas that you need to be really disciplined in and the areas that you can be a bit more creative with. And I think that was what we struggled with yesterday, was discipline in particular areas. For example, staying on side was a massive issue for us yesterday, especially in the first half. Jimmy J Morgan was almost chronically offside. Like, it was consistent that linesman, who, to be honest, looked like he was being very strict with the offside rule, definitely stricter than his mate down the other side. But he gave a lot of offsides against our attacking players in the first half. Obviously, we have a goal disallowed through Cairo Lisby for offside, which would have been a massive moment, would have been the equaliser at that point, 1-1, and we were dominating the game. And, you know, I think if that goal had stood, we would have gone on to do big things within that game. That was the issue with the attacking discipline. And then defensively, what I would say with Kioso is, yes, I don't massively blame him for that second goal maybe, but he sort of, if he's going to go in an attacking position, get really high and get in an attacking position, he sort of finds himself in no man's land. And I think he did that quite a few times yesterday, where he was not high enough to be able to instantly contribute to an attack or a counter-attack, but he also wasn't defensive enough to be in there. And maybe he did and we just didn't see it or hear it, but you need to communicate with Tom Lees as well and say, right, I'm going up as the right-sided centre-back. You need to get a little bit wider and cover that winger if he makes the run, which I know is a lot of information to convey, but as a captain especially, you should be able to do that. And we just need to close ourselves off a little bit more to that sort of that error, because I can understand why Garbet's gone for it with that pass out from the back, because we'd been sort of stuck with the ball encamped in our half and we'd not been able to really break through them for quite a while, and the away end was getting a bit frustrated and really wanted that moment of inspiration. And Garbett, as sort of what we all sort of say is probably our technically best player, he's taken it upon his shoulders to try and do something a little bit special and to try and get us out. And fair enough, it's not worked and he's lost the ball. But we should be able to deal with, you know, losing the ball on our halfway line. It's not as if he's lost the ball and he's the last defence. We've then got an entire pretty much back line behind him other than Kioso. The midfield is pretty compacted in with him as well. Like, we should have been able to react to that better, in my opinion. And so, yeah, that was the thing. It's just when can you do the creative stuff? You need to commit to the creative stuff and also show a bit of discipline in terms of, can we stay on side and can we keep our position? Yeah, that's all I wanted to see yesterday. I think that would have improved the performance massively.
I couldn't find a total number on the statistics of how many offsides we've had this season, but via stats, we're averaging 4 offsides a game. Like, that is ridiculous that we're offside 4 times a game when we're going forward. It's got to change. We've got to be better at it. It kills our attack when we're going forward, and ultimately a lot of the reason why we couldn't get a rhythm going, especially in the first half, was because, as Charlie said, Jimmy J Morgan just found himself offside all the time. And then Lisby scores a goal and he's offside, and that ball from Harley Mills was absolutely fantastic. It was begging to go in, and Kara Lisby's found himself offside. And, we score 1-1 there and we've got that much time to go and find ourselves a winner. I think we win the game there. But again, shooting ourselves in the own foot by not being able to stay onside. But to be averaging 4 offsides a game and more is crazy. And that's something that Luke Williams really needs to iron out with his players, because if we can reduce that number even by an offside a game, maybe in one of those moments where Kara Lisby does score a goal or a player does score a goal, we're not going to find ourselves offside and still be a goal down.
Let's talk about some players then. I want to start with someone that you mentioned there in Harley Mills. I thought Kioso has been battered on Twitter. I thought Harley Mills was comfortably worse than Kioso in general play. Now, clearly, Kioso, in my opinion, was partially at fault for both goals. And I think Mills defensively was better than him. But Mills' one good cross, I felt, for the entirety of the game was the ball into Lisby when he was then offside. And actually, other than that, I thought he was really unproductive. I really like Harley Mills. I'm colours to the mast. I think he has a lot of potential, but I really wanted to start impacting on games a little bit more, and I want to see a little bit more from him this season. I know how good he can be going forward. I know he's a very good crosser of the ball. I'm not sure he's showing that at the minute. And when, like I say, when Mills and Kioso, to a lesser extent going forward, aren't creating much, and then Lisby wasn't getting much change, Garbutt's not getting much change, it becomes very difficult for us to create chances consistently. And I just think on the ball yesterday, Mills was nowhere near his best for a lot of that game. And I would like to see him just show a little bit more confidence. Like, you're not that... He played so well. I keep going back to this Wembley performance where he was so good. And I'm never expecting him to reach that level every week, because he wouldn't be here right now. But he's now, 25, 30 Football League games under his belt. I want him to start showing a little bit more confidence and belief in his own ability almost. I feel like he's got so much more left to give. I almost feel like when I'm watching Harley Mills at the minute, he feels a little bit restrained in what he does. And I think actually he's a better player than that, and actually can do more on the ball than that. I don't know whether that's widespreadly agreed, but I just didn't think he offered us a great amount going forward or on the ball. And the fact that we don't really have any other left back options at the minute isn't ideal, because those are the sort of performances where I wouldn't mind seeing a rotational player come in, but we don't really have that option at the minute.
Yeah, I get what you're saying about Mills, but I actually think, first of all, it's harsh to call him worse than Kioso. I think Harley Mills was so much better than Peter Kioso yesterday, like worlds above him. And I also think it's harsh to say that he only really had one good cross in the game. Yeah, he only had one good cross that met a player during the game, but it was almost more of a problem of the strikers, because there were definitely some, especially in the second half, that he put into really good areas, into that sort of corridor, but where it's too far for the goalkeeper to come out and punch it, but it's still in behind that back line, and nobody attacked it. Harley Mills, I felt like, was actually really trying to make things happen from left back, especially in that first half when they were sat in quite a low block. He was roaming around quite a lot. He'd often I looked over at one point and I was like, where is Harley Mills? Because I looked at the left back position, there was nobody there. And he was almost playing as a right-sided cam to try and just rotate the game and make things happen. And I thought Kioso was so much worse. I felt like he got booked, obviously, in the game. It was his man, if you want to call it that scored both the goals. I thought he, going forward, was absolutely dreadful. Like, I don't remember him putting in any good crosses. If Harley Mills only had one, he didn't have a single one. He wasn't overlapping really. He was really struggling to keep up with, who was playing on the right in the second half. Garbett for a lot of it was playing on the right, and he was really struggling to keep up with Garbett. He didn't really get round him. I thought Kioso and Mills were worlds apart in terms of their performance. I think the only disappointing thing with Harley Mills, which links into a wider piece, was the set piece delivery. I felt like it wasn't great, but also, what are we doing with our set pieces, man? This is something that I guess I'll touch on later on. But what are we doing? Like, some of them were dreadful yesterday. There was one on the edge of the box, which you'd think a Harley Mills left footer maybe over the wall, and like, we tried to like pinball it between three players, and then it ended up sort of ending up miles back. I know Luke Williams, he likes to play in a certain way with set pieces, but the lads in the box, Tom Lees is a good header of the ball. Tom O'Connor can head a football. These, our centre backs are not tiny. It's not like we're playing with Knight and Edwards. These guys are good aerial centre backs, and we've got other tall players in the team, and we didn't test them from set pieces at all. And Donny are one of the teams that are the worst at defending set pieces in the league. I remember when Ash and I were live, a Donny fan came in the chat and was like, how are Posh from set pieces? Because I'll give you a clue. We are terrible defensively and offensively. And we didn't really test them, their organisation. I was really frustrated by that, but I don't think you can blame, going back to the main point, I don't think you can blame Harley Mills massively for yesterday. I think he massively overshone Kioso and was actually one of our better players in terms of trying to make things happen.
Yeah, I also want to talk about Tom O'Connor very briefly. I was winding Charlie up in the away end, saying that Sam Hughes is going to replace him because it's 2 games now that he'd been terrible. I think I'd said that in the 7th minute of the game. But I thought, again, it was a very poor performance from Tom O'Connor yesterday, and I think that's the second game that he struggled. Now, where I think Tom O'Connor excelled in the second half at really driving the ball up the pitch, but he looked really shaky defensively in the first half, I felt, and there was a lot of scary moments between him and Bass that had my heart in my mouth a little bit, and I don't think he got across to his man quickly enough at a lot of occasions. And I rate Tom O'Connor very highly, and again, the only reason why I'm nitpicking this and saying that it was a poor game is because how brilliant he's been before that. I think really this is his first 2 games, Steven Ajam, today, where I think he's been really poor. But in the second half, he was really good at bringing the ball up and the pitch, and that's what I want to see. But again, I thought Lees outshone him again yesterday, and I think Lees is continuing to prove that he was a fantastic addition to this squad, because I don't think he's, apart from that scary moment against Cardiff, I don't think he's put a foot wrong. I think he's been really good, and Tom O'Connor looked worse than him yesterday, and that's not necessarily what I want to see. I want it to be a very easy transition as to whether or not Sam Hughes is going to walk back into the team. Unfortunately, we know he's had a setback now, and he won't come back probably. I don't think we'll see him play this season, and it will be Tom Lees and O'Connor until the summer, I would guess. But honestly, I don't mind that, but Tom O'Connor's got to up the performances for me a little bit. And again, it's 2 games. It feels a bit harsh saying that, but I wanted to bring it up because I wasn't impressed. But I know Tom O'Connor will get back on his feet, I'm sure, and get the performances back on track.
Yeah, it is a difficult one. And obviously, I mentioned yesterday that I watched the game back just before we did this recording. And it's always easy to know that there's no jeopardy coming from the passes because you know that we've already conceded the 2 goals. So you can feel a lot more relaxed in that sense. I think my big concern is that we had 4 midfielders on the pitch yesterday, and something doesn't quite seem right in that, of course, we're playing Keller out of position. He's playing in the right wing role yesterday. We've got Garbett in the 10. I'm not sure that Garbett is a 10. There were some good moments between Archie Collins and Ben Woods, but I'd like to see all 4 of them playing at the same time, but not in the system that they're playing at the moment. And I think that I don't want to get ahead of myself here, but I saw tweets yesterday saying, how do we get Jimmy J. Morgan and Harry Leonard on the pitch at the same time? I think that the only solution is that we have to then play all 4 of the midfielders at the same time, but you move it into like a 4-1-3-2 with them playing quite narrow, and then you would then have your right back and your left back being your wingers as such, with Archie Collins dropping in. and then you're then three. You've got Keller, Garbett, and then Woods onto the left as well. It goes back to what I said at the start, is that Williams is still learning everybody's best positions, everybody's football, and all of those sorts of things. And the midfield, yes, they were very good, and Ben Woods was great in the first 4 Luke Williams games. He's had a little bit of a drop off, and it's just not. It just doesn't feel right playing players out of position. To the extent where, look, Phil mentioned in his interview, didn't he, that being a winger is one of the jobs that you can't just jump in and do. You have to be able to beat the man and do it well. Keller's not got that. There was multiple times yesterday when I watched him that you think, oh, just push the ball past the man and get round him, and he couldn't do it because that's not in his skill set. That's not. Yes, he's good at doing that in the middle of the pitch, but when you've only got the line behind you and you've got a player in front of you, he wants space, and you don't get that when you're a winger. And if you've not got the ability to beat a man, it's ultimately a wasted position, isn't it?
I think for me that is now the glaring problem with this system, is just the lack of quality out wide. Brandon Keller is not a right winger. He wasn't good yesterday, but when he started right wing, did any of us think he was going to be great? I mean, Williams seems to want to use him there because he scored against Stockport and he wants to get him on the pitch, which I kind of get. Keller's a good player, but it's the sort of thing that, again, Ash, you alluded to it earlier, but if Williams had been here since pre-season, I think he probably does that experiment maybe back then. Let's say we've got this squad assembled, and this would have happened in August, and it's less problematic, but teams know what their strongest team is. Williams is trying to work it out, and it's December almost now. And Keller right wing may not be seen again, but I say that, but who else really is there that we're going to use? And you look at yesterday, Garbett wasn't great, I didn't think, in the 10, like you say. I just, he wanted to get on the ball, but when he was on the ball, I really want to see him in the same. I just said I want to see Mills step up, right? I think Garbett, you're such a talent. I really want to see you just dominate games at this level, particularly against Doncaster Rovers. With no disrespect to them, he is a better player than anyone in their squad, and I want him to look like that. And yet, did he create anything really? No. Did he? He came close to scoring on one breakaway, but again, he could have slipped in another player there, and it was a bad choice. And then down the left, Lisby. I like Kyle Lisby a lot. He works hard. He's still raw. He's not. I don't think he's a top-end League One player at this point. So you're looking at 2 key positions where you've got Oddo, you've got Keller, you've got Lisby, you've got maybe you can farm Garbett out on a wing where he's not comfortable. There's such a lack of options out wide that when we brought Frith on, and Frith had a different problem, but we really need him fit because he is the one good 1v1 dribbler that we've got. And that is something that we lack so much, just that ability to take players on. I'm not sure we've really seen it in a Posh team, certainly not recently, because you can go back to Mason Clark, Poku, Dembele. We've always, Madison even, we've always had wingers that are very good at getting by people. At the minute, we don't really have wingers that are great at getting by people, whereas Frith looks like he's in that mould. Frith's problem was he'd get to the area and then there was a lack of quality on the end of the final ball. So the sooner we can get him fit, the sooner we can get Kean Hayes back, the better, really, because I think the system is falling down a little bit on these wide players at the minute. And while Kyle Lisby, I would say, has been one of the better performers, he has to just keep playing at the minute. And like yesterday, maybe it was the fact that he's come out of non-league and it's a bit of lethargy that resulted in the performance, which wasn't great. I mean, Lisby even played at bloody Crawley because we just don't have the options to change him, and he's playing a hell of a lot of football. So it is difficult for Williams if he wants to play this 4-2-3-1 because of that. And I think that is the ultimate thing that is harming us. We're playing better football now than we were under Fergie, but the last 2 results have really exposed the lack of quality or the issues that we're having in those wide positions. And until we solve that, which it's going to be January now, isn't it? We don't have the players in the squad. I think we've seen that now. It could be a struggle, I think.
Yeah, we need a busy January. I completely agree. I think it's glaringly obvious that if we're going to be without Mendy for a large stint, or if Mendy's coming back soon, I don't really know. But we're going to need a left back, and I think we're also going to need a winger, somebody to play on that side. I think, Ash, you were saying you want to see all four midfielders play together, and my argument was going to be, well, where do you fit Frith into that? Because I think Frith came on and was fantastic. The other problem that you've got then is where do you put Jimmy J Morgan? If you want to play all four midfielders together, you can play like a diamond. You could play a 4-1-3-1 or whatever you wanted to play. In my opinion, I think, and I was thinking about it, I don't know whether I would like to see Jimmy J Morgan and Gustav come on and switch to a 4-2-3-1. And then we start the game with a 4-3-3 and play a midfield three of Collins, Garbett and Woods, and drop the 10 and then play the wingers and let Woods and Garbett run the show in the middle. This system works so well when our midfield three are coherent and they're playing really well together. And I felt like in the first half, they weren't. And I felt Leonard is so good at dropping deep and complementing that midfield. So if we were to take one of those midfielders out and then play Jimmy J Morgan the 10 and then play Gustav up front as a game changer later on, I think that's how I would, I don't have the credentials that Luke Williams has, of course, but I think that's how I would line up is I drop the 10 completely and I play a midfield three of Garbett, Collins and Ben Woods, and then I play and Lisby and Leonard up front. And I just see how that works. I think that's our best team. And then to change a game, I'm going to bring Jimmy J Morgan on, who's been fantastic at running at tired legs, who's been fantastic at harassing people and winning the ball, and Gustav, who, as we say all the time, makes great runs and has scored 2 goals, so if we can get them on the end, maybe he does have a clinical edge that we just haven't seen from him yet. But I think that's how I set up, and I think you've got to play Declan Frith, because I know John said there that there wasn't a lot of end product, but when he came on, he really got that away and going. And that's something I felt that we've lacked, a winger that's really got me off my feet. And Declan Frith did that to a T. He really caused them problems. And yeah, the end product's not quite there, but again, he's coming back from an injury. I expect that to change. And I expect Declan Frith to be a really exciting player for us.
Yeah, I'm with you on Frith. I have to say, I think, Williams does deserve a little bit of criticism because I really do think Harry Leonard should have started yesterday. Thought it was bizarre him not starting, especially because he was taken off after 60 against Stevenage. He hardly looked a spent force when he got taken off. Like, it seemed more like a tactical thing because he hadn't done a huge amount of running because Stevenage were a very low block and we didn't really run them very hard. And then, to be benched was really weird. I think when he came on, he looked much better than Jimmy J did in the first half. I don't think he would have done as much stupid stuff as Jimmy J did in the first half either if he was in his position, like just mindlessly rolling offside. I think as well he would have come deep and linked the play better, which was very much needed, as you mentioned, Max. I think Jimmy J's good, but Leonard is by a long way our best striker. Like Lindgren's nowhere near him. I was bizarre that you used the words of a game changer to describe Lindgren, because I'm still seeing very little from that guy. Off the bench yesterday, again, very little effect. But Harry Leonard should have played in that game. I'm not sure what Williams is doing with him. Like, I know we mentioned that Fergie often liked to, with wingers, when he was getting trying to get a winger firing, he'd let them play well, then take them out and then put them back in. And whether sort of Luke Williams does a similar thing to get his strikers firing, like he's certainly got a tune out of strikers before. Like, you think about what he did with Langstaff at Notts County, he definitely knows how to get a striker scoring. So maybe we just need to trust the process on that one. But I thought when Leonard came on and he scored his goal and he took it so well, and he was just so much more of a threat and gave those centre backs such a more difficult time than Jimmy J Morgan did. I just thought it was a really bad decision to not start him in the game, and I think he's got to be a nailed on starter from now onwards, because we just look so much better with him as the sort of the focal point of the team.
I would echo every single word you just said there, Chaz. I thought it was actually really weird that Williams said Jimmy J was man of the match 2 games ago against Stockport, so that's why I kept him in the team, but he played a different position. So great, he was man of the match as a number 10, but you moved him out of that position to play him up front and dropped Leonard, who has been red hot under, and I don't think he'll make the same mistake again. But yeah, that is the first time. I'm not saying alarm bells. I think he's made a great start, but that is the first thing that I heard him say that I was like, well, it doesn't really add up. It's still, that decision still doesn't make sense in my head. And I know people will say it was really obvious in hindsight to say, that he got it wrong. But if you're asking me which striker I'm starting as a number 9, it's always going to be Harry Leonard. I think he looks I've said consistently, I think he looks a really good player, and there's no way he should be on the bench when he's fit. He should just play every game, I think. And I think he will from now. One player who's not putting him under any pressure, and you mentioned it, Charlie, but somebody needs to demand more from Gustav Lindgren. I know he scored those 2 goals again, but what are we doing here? It's back to just making no impact on games when he's coming on. And I don't want to keep digging this guy out, but it just needs to end in January. It's not going to work. It's just not going to work. It's 12 months now. And like I say, I know he scored 2 goals and people might say, well, you've been really harsh, but he's just coming on and he's just got to make more impact. I watched him yesterday and we're on top in that game as well. Imagine if we had a striker that, I don't even know, just another option, a big lad. I'd even rather a Brad, I think, at this point. I know Brad's injured and we can't really use him, but just that big physical presence. I just don't know what bringing Gustav on is doing or impacting on the team. And I know we are limited in the options that we've got off the bench, certainly in attacking areas. But yeah, I've said it multiple times, but I just wish we'd stop bringing him on now at this point. I really do. I think fair credit to the lad. And I don't want to bash him because I think his attitude is great. I really do think he keeps trying. He keeps plugging away. He's a good professional. He's never once quit on his team. And I don't think it's a question of attitude. I just don't think he's good enough for English football. And that's okay. But I'm almost like, can we just stop the experiment now and just stick with what we've got? Because I don't see any scenario where I think, yeah, Gustav will change this game. I just don't see it. I don't know the game state that I'd ever think we need to bring Gustav Lindgren on here. And yesterday, again, barely touched the ball when he came on.
Yeah, again, I think my point about Gustav and Jimmy J. Morgan coming on was more, I want to change the formation to something more attacking. Like if we're going to play a 4-3-3, it's more balanced, isn't it? But taking a midfielder off and then putting Jimmy J. Morgan in the 10 and then taking Leonard off if we need to and playing Gustav for fresh legs might impact the game more rather than Gustav being the impact of the game. Briefly, just before we finish, I've got a real bone to pick with our awareness in the opposition box because their goalkeeper spilt everything. Every time we tested him, he palmed it straight back into the box. And we've not followed it once. We've not got one player who's followed it in at all through the whole game. Not one player. And I'm standing there looking at the goal like, look, and I think that their goalkeeper is relatively poor, but I do have to give credit. He made 2 really good saves, one from Archie Collins and one later on, and he played the clock really well. We talk about the dark arts of football and whatever. I thought he time wasted well, and that's ultimately what killed a lot of our pressure. But it's so infuriating to watch when the ball is trickling towards one of our players and nobody's going to just boot it into practically an empty net because the goalkeeper's not getting up to save it from that close range. So that was really disappointing. We've got to be more aware in the box. And this problem stemmed the whole season, whether it's getting on the end of crosses or latching onto the end of through balls. And now it's goalkeepers are spilling. We've got to be more smart when we get into that box to really take those opportunities. And hopefully we can sort that out. And that's something that Luke Williams hopefully saw yesterday, because I just think it's a little bit street smart. If your striker's taken a shot, the closest player to it, just follow it in, just gamble, especially if you're looking for a goal. If you're a goal down, there's no excuse not to gamble in the box, is there, and chase a shot, because he spills it, it's game over. You pummel it into an empty net, you've got yourself a goal, it's 2-2, we're back in the game, and we didn't do that. And that was really disappointing from us, I thought, because I think we could have easily have won the game had we have just followed those loose balls in.
Well, I think that's everything on the game. Unfortunately, the bad news didn't stop at full time. While Harry was doing his rather excellent speech at the wedding, Luke Williams was announcing that Sam Hughes has suffered a setback from injury, is to undergo surgery again. And I think Max mentioned it earlier, but it looks like he will not play again this season. Really, if we're putting money on it, it doesn't look like he's going to be fit. Another really, really frustrating piece of news, isn't it, Ash?
Yeah, you're right. And Max mentioned it earlier about having a busy January. Who would have thought that after 16 players in the summer that we would need a busy January 3 months into the season? And that really does sum up Peterborough United, doesn't it, at the moment? And a lot of these injuries are bad luck, I would say. Like, do you expect Sam Hughes to do his Achilles in pre-season at Colchester away? No. But then what sort of stress testing are we doing that means that he's done it in training whilst he's probably not even managed to touch grass yet in his rehab? But like we've said it before, is that I'm sure that DMAC said recently that we've got one of the best physios in the country, but we are simply not seeing that at the moment. We have so many players that are injured. And then alongside that, we have players that we can only bring on for 25 minutes in a game, in like Declan Frith and stuff. That I appreciate that these are bizarre injuries, but how are things like this not being picked up in medicals? Declan Frith's bruised knee, like that doesn't just appear out of nowhere. Like that's clearly something that has been long term and has never been found before. It's very frustrating. And Max, you're right. We need probably now 4 or 5 players in. We've got Nevitt in. And actually, this is a direct call out to the club again. It would be fantastic if we could actually have some proper communication on these injuries. Where is Adebisi? How long is Sam Hughes going to be out for? When is Kean Hayes going to be back fit? I'm not talking about like, yeah, he's going to be back fit on the 17th of January. Just put a time frame on it. 6 to 8 weeks. That's all that we're asking. It's just some communication from the club so that these players that we know and we enjoy watching, when are they going to be back fit? George Nevitt, he's apparently walking around in a boot. What's wrong with him? When's he going to be back playing? Because at the moment, we've got 3 centre-backs that are fit in the first team. I'm talking in January that we potentially need to bring in another one because we need the cover. We can't consistently play Tom O'Connor with David Cagway in rotation.
Yeah, it's really weird how these players just sort of disappear off the face of the earth. Like, we don't really know when Jacob Mendy is going to be back. Phil, was there a throwaway comment from Phil where he said like he's back in the training ground yesterday? Well, that's the first I'm hearing of it. Like, cheers, Phil, for that little tidbit of information. Any danger of some proper communication? Like, even like it goes back to when Jack Sparks signed and Phil quote tweeted his signing with like horrible news about Rhea, and we were all like, what's happened? Like, we need to start communicating this better. Like, for example, yesterday, where was Abraham Oddo? Like, I'm glad he wasn't there, don't get me wrong. We all wanted him dropped from the starting 11. But like, for him not even to be on the bench, there must be something wrong with him, right? He must have picked up a knock in training or something. That's the kind of thing you'd expect. And I understand that we don't post our team news like just before every game exactly accurate with like he's going to be back for this game, and if Oddo was injured, you know, we wouldn't want to give Doncaster that massive, you know, plus going into the game, that massive confidence boost of Oddo being injured. So I can understand why we wouldn't put stuff out on like a game by game basis. But yeah, it's really weird that we know nothing about these players' injuries at all until, you know, it's effectively we see them on the pitch, or we're told that they're back in training, or we see them in the back of a Joe Dent photo. Like, I find it so bizarre that this isn't something that we consistently do. I don't think it's even like that unrealistic of an expectation, because I think most clubs give more detailed injury updates than that. So yeah, really weird. But yeah, the injuries this season, well, some of them must be freak injuries. I'm sorry, you can't, like, there has to be something going on with the physio department, because also the amount of players that have been close to coming back from injury, or at least been on the road to recovery, and then have had setback after setback. Like, are we managing that recovery well? Or, as Ash says, are we just signing players with broken bodies? Like Adebisi, surely Crew will have known something about this injury that he had. Like, I refuse to believe that someone has that bad of like a fundamental issue with one of their legs and like it never be discovered in any medical treatment ever. Like, it's so frustrating, completely ruins our momentum. Because now, as Ash mentioned, imagine we don't see Sam Hughes for the rest of the season. Imagine that's the case. We don't know what kind of player we're going to be getting back in a year's time after not playing for a year at 27 as a centre back. He already wasn't the most athletic of blokes. To then have him coming back after a year out of the game, he could be absolutely shite. And then that's another bit of money wasted on a player that, for what, one header away at Colchester in pre-season. And he's the club captain. Like, what club captain doesn't step a foot on the pitch for the first half of the season or potentially for the whole season? Do we then have to reassign the club captaincy? Like, I don't know what's going on with these injuries, and it's so frustrating. And it sort of got lost under a cloud of Doncaster away, which maybe that's what the club are trying to do, sort of bury the news in all the post-match stuff. But very frustrating to be without a captain. And yeah, can we just, any danger of finding out when these players are going to be back or whether they're ever going to be back, please? Because Adebisi was meant to be playing in an under-21s game about 3 weeks ago, according to Dara. He didn't. He hasn't played for the under-21 since, and we have no idea, other than the odd, innuendo comment from one of like the interviewers or from Luke Williams. We have no idea what's going on there, and I feel like as fans, we deserve to be communicated with properly.
The other thing that neither of you have mentioned actually is we are now incredibly reliant on a 36-year-old Tom Lees, who I believe, did he fail a medical? And we kind of pushed it through anyway. Failed a medical twice and we signed him. Now, Tom Lees has been great so far. I think he's done really, really well. But he is old. He is potentially, he didn't have a preseason. And he is a potential injury risk, right? Certainly if you play him a lot. We also don't know the length of Tom Lees' contract. Nobody knows that. Darrow was very coy on that when asked when we spoke to him most recently. Is there a chance another team? He's done well in League One. We've seen other players leave Peterborough for other League One clubs. What if Doncaster Rovers come in for him? Believe he's based up there. What happens then? We've got David Akagwe and Luca Mendonca and Fabian Claxton, and that is it at the minute, fit, other than Tom O'Connor. So the fact that we signed 4 centre-backs in the summer and we're now getting to January and we're going, we might need another one when we're playing 2 at the back now rather than 3, that has to be looked at as a concern, doesn't it? Like, that is pretty bad. It is a concern, and hopefully all I can do is pray that Sam Hughes' injury isn't as bad as it seems. It might be a 3-month recovery. We do not know. But it does look like it's going to be a long, long time out.
Yeah, I think you're right. And that does sort of just... I'm sure that we discussed it, didn't we? What does January look like? I don't think that January looks like a new left-back now. I think that Jacob Mendy is going to be back for January, so he will slot in and rotate with Harley Mills. We've still got 3 right-backs in the building. Are we going to start seeing JD, the best crosser at the club, playing centre-back because he was doing that at some point this season? He played right centre-back, didn't he? And was it against Villa, I think, under 21s? Then you're talking 2 wingers, potentially, another striker. We're talking 5 players. That would be 21 players in a season. That is like Steve Evans levels of incomings, which is just mental for me. And we go back to Crawley and we saw that rotation, and actually the players aren't up to scratch when we rotate. And thinking ahead to Swindon, we're going to see rotation, aren't we? We're probably going to see Reyes in goal. We're probably going to see JD and CJ. And I'm not overly bothered about those 2 playing. I think that we'll see one of them at right back, one of them at left back, and then they'll switch for half time. Tom Lees, like John mentioned, probably isn't going to play on Tuesday night because he needs a rest. His body needs it. If we're going to go, he's going to have to play against Barnsley, Reading, and then Cobblers. So that's 3 games in 7 days that he's going to have to do. That means that Claxton's out on loan at Corby, which means that we've got Dave to come in, which means that then we've got Mendonca on the bench. And it's like we are literally bare bones with a 31-man squad when you don't even include the under-21s. It is just absolutely mental. Are we going to see Ryan de Havilland on Tuesday night again? Are we going to see Donne start on Tuesday night? I would say that Donne probably does deserve a rotational game after his performance when he came on against Crawley. I wouldn't be opposed to that, just to try something different and maybe rotate him with Ben Woods as the left footers in that sort of setup, so that Ben Woods can come on and have 30 minutes of a run around. It's just very confusing that on Tuesday night, I don't know what we're going to play, because Frith hasn't got 90 minutes in him. Otto's disappeared. Lisby is probably due a rest as well. He's playing relentlessly. And again, we talk about what December looks like for us. Is it 7 games within the month? Where are these players going to get a rest? We're not going to be bringing Changunda in. He's on loan at AFC Totton. We're not going to be bringing... We've got a striker in Dave Kamara. We're not bringing him in. He's on loan at Market Harborough. Like, where are these players that are meant to be our rotation? Is there a chance that we see Bolu on Tuesday night? I just don't know. It's just very confusing at the moment. That we know that we need to rotate on Tuesday, but actually, as the season progresses, I think that we're now 6 points off safety, potentially. The Virtue Trophy is looking like something that's going to sort of hold our season together again. And Tuesday is a must-win game to bring back that positive energy heading into the FA Cup at the weekend. It's very, very bizarre.
Yeah, the problem is I don't massively care about the Virtue Trophy, but if you're going to rotate now, great. You can do it in centre mid because you can bring in de Havilland. You can bring in O'Brien Brady. You can play Keller back there. You can do it up front. You could play Lindgren. You could play Jimmy J. Leonard was on the bench this weekend. You could even start him for 45 minutes. But the wings, you literally can't rotate. The fullbacks, you're playing someone out of position. We've covered centre half. You're almost, by rotating, you are almost throwing the game. I know we're playing against a League Two side, but because there's such a lack of viable options in certain positions on the pitch, all our reserve players are stockpiled in the same area. Like, brilliant. We've got 4 centre midfielders sat on the bench that you could rotate with. But why is it not 2 centre midfielders and 2 wingers? The squad has been really, really badly put together. There's just no way around that. Injuries are unfortunate, but these sort of games are really exposing, I think, how badly structured the squad is at the minute, how heavily stocked we are in some positions and how lightly stocked we are in other positions. And the next 2 games, do I really care about? No. I'm going to Swindon on Tuesday. I'm not sure I'll enjoy it, but I'll try and enjoy it. But is it really going to affect my mood if we win Tuesday or Saturday? Not massively. But then we've got another game Tuesday night, which is huge. We, like you say, we are genuinely in danger of getting cut adrift. We were talking about top 6 when Williams came in, but we are genuinely starting to get in danger of that gap becoming genuinely concerning. And it's 5 teams playing for 4 relegate. We have to be the one of the 5 that stays up. And it's amazing what wins can do. Because I was looking at the fixtures and you're going, well, they don't look too difficult. And then now you're going, yeah, Reading away. It's no gimme game, our next game in the league at all, is it? And then Cobblers absolutely thumped us at our own patch last season. So, yeah, I don't even know what I'm saying. We just need to win. Please just win, get some momentum back, and then I can feel positive again. But I don't even know what to do Tuesday night. I'd rather not be Luke Williams at this point. I actually have, for the first time, I think ever, I have no semblance of a team that I want to see on the pitch in my head because I just do not know how to construct it.
I mean, I know what team should play and what team I'd play. I'm not going to bore people running through the entire thing, but, it's got to be Dave and Tom O'Connor at the back, and the midfield's probably going to include Donne and maybe even Lolos, and the front three. I honestly think Harry Leonard could maybe start because obviously he didn't start in the game yesterday. He might be in for a start. Gustav's probably going to play. So you know what the team will sort of look like. But yeah, it's a bit of a shit one for Luke Williams to have to deal with in the middle of... He probably would rather have a free week. But Swindon, it's not even an easy game. That's the thing. Like, it's such a difficult one. They're riding on the crest of a wave right now. They're unbeaten in their last, I'm just looking, 5 league games, probably more. They're 1 point off the top of League Two. They've got good players playing for them, like Ollie Palmer, ex-Wrexham, plays for them. Tafazoli plays for them. Tom Nichols plays for them, plays midfield for them, apparently.
Not a good player. You just to categorise, you said they've got good players and then brought up Tom Nichols. I'd just like to qualify, not a good player, Charlie.
Not a good player, but they've got other players that are going to cause us real problems. And I don't know how strong they'll go, to be fair. That's the one thing that might be a bit of a blessing in disguise. It wouldn't surprise me if they rotated quite a bit. Ian Holloway manages them. And he doesn't seem to strike me as the kind of manager to massively care about the Virtue Trophy. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's going to be taking it very seriously. But yeah, it's just going to be a grim game. I'm really not looking forward to it, or the Barnsley game, to be honest. I'd rather just stick with the league. But you never know. You progress in 2 cups, and that should increase the vibe a little bit, especially if we then go on to get a good draw in the FA Cup 3rd round. But then again, would that help us? Because then we'd have players playing not to get injured. It's such a complicated issue, isn't it? It's not a great time to be Luke Williams. But there we are. A penny for his thoughts over the next week, because he's got some serious headaches. Some serious headaches ahead, I think.
Right. Score predictions then. Ashley, lead us off.
Well, I am going to go with a Desmond 2-2 and Posh to win on penalties. I think that... Do you know what? Max... Oh, was it Max that mentioned Lolos? I totally forgot about him. He's not my first goal scorer. I'm going to go with Brandon Keller as the first goal scorer. And it'll be another great away day in the Virtue Trophy for Peterborough United.
I think he is going to start Harry Leonard. So I will be boring and say that I think Harry Leonard will score the first goal. I think we might lose. I actually think we might lose. I don't know if this is too reactionary, but I just think we are going to make changes. I've seen the level of these players that come in over multiple years now, a lot of them, and they're not very good. So I think we're going to lose. And I'm going to say we're going to lose 2-1.
Well, I'll be the reverse to John's coin, and I'll say we'll scrape a win. I don't think it's going to be one for the ages like Ash does. I think it's going to be a poor game of football on a Tuesday night where both teams has got their brain on other things and neither of them really wants to be there. But I think we will win 2-1, and I'll go with Donne O'Brien Brady as my first Posh goal scorer.
So just very quickly, Swindon have only lost once at home this whole season, and it was the 2nd game of the season against Barnet. And the last time they lost, they were on the end of a 4-0 thumping away to Accrington Stanley. I can see us losing quite heavily. I think we're going to rotate. I think it's going to be a disaster. I think we're going to lose 3-1. Harry Leonard will score, but I think it's not going to be a very good night in the Virtue Trophy.
Wow. Max, the harbinger of doom. I was not putting my money on that one. Well, with that, I think we're roughly getting towards the end of the episode. I just would like to say, again, congratulations to Harry and Tiff Anders on their wedding. It was a lovely day, enjoyed by those of us who attended. I would also like to say, please subscribe. In celebration, we would love it if you'd subscribe. Harry has also said if anyone wants to leave him a gift, he would love it if anyone buys a pin badge off the UpThePoshcast website. So if you do want to celebrate Harry's wedding, he said, don't worry about the honeymoon. Don't worry about the funding the wedding. It's all about those pin badges. That was the other message that he wanted to convey. So please do get over to UpThePoshcast and buy a pin badge. And wear it to a game and we'll say hello, I promise. With all that said, up the Poshcast.
Up the Poshcast.
Up the Poshcast.
Up the Poshcast.
I also think that we should mention that Harry Anders is the stiffest dancer I've ever seen.